My name is Daniel Carter, and before this happened, I was just a normal person living a quiet life. I worked night shifts, kept to myself, and enjoyed the peace of being alone. I had always liked silence, but after this incident, silence became the scariest thing in the world for me. What I am about to tell you is completely true, and even now, years later, my hands shake when I think about it. This happened around 4 years ago, just a few days before Christmas on December 19th. I remember the date clearly because Christmas used to be my favorite time of year, and this experience destroyed that feeling forever. At that time, I was living alone in a rented house near Pinewood Road, just outside a small town in Ohio. It was not deep in the forest, but the houses were far enough apart that privacy was guaranteed. If someone screamed, the sound would disappear into the cold air. During winter, everyone kept their windows shut tight, and the world felt quiet and empty after sunset. I had always been careful. I was the kind of person who locked the door, walked away, then came back to check it again. Sometimes I checked the locks 3 times before bed. I did not think of myself as paranoid, just cautious. I believed that being careful was enough to keep bad things away. I was wrong. Nothing prepares you for true fear, especially when it walks into your life slowly and quietly. That evening, I came home from work around 6:30. The sun had already disappeared, and the sky was dark blue, almost black. Snow covered the ground, and my breath turned into white clouds in front of my face. As I walked up the porch steps, I noticed something on the welcome mat in front of my door. There was a box sitting there, perfectly centered, as if someone had carefully placed it. The box was medium-sized and wrapped in plain brown paper. There were no decorations, no holiday colors, no bow, and no shipping label. No name, no address, nothing. It looked strange, but it did not scare me at first. I picked it up and it felt light. My first thought was that my sister Emily had left it there. She lived about an hour away and loved giving early Christmas gifts. She never waited for Christmas Day and often surprised people without telling them first. I smiled, thinking about how she always did things like this. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and locked it behind me. I kicked off my boots, picked up the box again, and carried it into the kitchen. The house was quiet just like always. I put the box on the counter and grabbed a pair of scissors from the drawer. I was not scared at all. I was actually excited. I wondered what strange gift Emily had chosen this time. I cut the tape and opened the box. Inside, there was a layer of bubble wrap. I pulled it away carefully, expecting to see something fun or silly. Under the bubble wrap was a black wooden picture frame. It looked simple and clean, nothing special. I turned it over, ready to laugh or smile. That smile never came. Inside the frame was a photograph of me. I was standing at my kitchen sink, washing dishes. I was wearing the same blue hoodie I had worn the night before. Steam was rising from the hot water, and my head was slightly tilted, focused on the pan in my hands. The photo was clear, sharp, and taken from outside the house. The darkness of the backyard surrounded the image. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. My heart started beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Someone had been standing in my backyard, right against the glass, watching me. They had taken a photo while I was completely unaware, listening to music and cleaning dishes. I stood there frozen, gripping the frame, trying to understand what I was seeing. The silence in the house suddenly felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I slowly placed the frame on the counter. My phone was lying next to the box. Suddenly, it started ringing. The sound was so loud in the quiet kitchen that I jumped. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. I usually never answered calls like that, but this time my thumb moved before my brain could stop it. I answered and held the phone to my ear without saying anything. For 3 seconds, there was only silence. Then I heard breathing. Heavy and wet, like someone struggling to breathe in cold air. Sounded close, too close. A deep, rough male voice finally spoke. He asked one simple question. He said, "Do you like the picture?" My blood turned to ice. I hung up without saying a word. I dropped the phone on the counter and rushed to the back door. It was locked. I ran to the front door and checked it again. Locked. My heart was racing, and I suddenly felt exposed, like every wall in the house was made of glass. I grabbed my phone again to call the police. Before I could press the numbers, there was a loud crash behind me. Glass shattered everywhere. The sound exploded through the kitchen, and I screamed as I dropped to the floor, covering my head. Cold air rushed in, burning my skin. I looked up slowly. The kitchen window above the sink, the same window from the photo, was shattered. Broken glass covered the counter and the floor. In the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by shards, was a rock about the size of a baseball. My whole body was shaking. I knew I needed to get away from the kitchen, but my eyes were locked on the rock. There was a piece of notebook paper wrapped around it with a rubber band. I knew I should not touch it. I knew I should run, but shock and fear took control. I crawled forward, picked up the rock, and pulled the paper off. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The handwriting was messy and sharp. It read, "I have more." That was when real panic hit me. I ran out of the kitchen and into the hallway, as far away from the broken window as possible. I called 911, barely able to press the buttons. When the dispatcher answered, my voice shook so badly I could barely speak. I told them someone was at my house, that they had broken my window, that they were watching me. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way and asked if I was in a safe place. I said I was in the hallway and that all the doors were locked. She told me to stay on the line. As I stood there, clutching the phone, a terrifying thought entered my mind. The note said he had more pictures. My phone buzzed against my ear. It was not a call. It was a text message from a blocked number. I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at the screen. There was an image file. I opened it. Tears filled my eyes instantly. The photo was taken inside my bedroom. It showed me sleeping in my bed. The angle was close, too close. The timestamp showed 3:14 in the morning, just hours earlier. He had been inside my house. While I was asleep, he had stood over me, taken a picture, and left without me ever knowing. I told the dispatcher what I had seen, my voice breaking. She tried to calm me, but fear had completely taken over my body. Then I heard it, the sound of snow crunching under heavy boots. It was not coming from the backyard. It was coming from the front porch. Each step was slow and deliberate. The wooden boards creaked under his weight. The front door handle rattled violently. He was not hiding anymore. He was testing the lock. I screamed into the phone, begging for help. The dispatcher said the officers were 2 minutes away. 2 minutes felt like forever. The rattling stopped for a moment, and hope flashed through my mind. Then a heavy thud hit the door. He threw his body against it again and again. The wood groaned and the frame shook. I ran upstairs as fast as I could and locked myself in the bathroom. It was the only room without a large window. I sat in the bathtub, pulling the curtain closed, holding a bottle of cleaner like it could save my life. Downstairs, I heard the door finally break. Heavy boots walked across the hardwood floor. Each step echoed up the stairs. He was not running. He was taking his time. He spoke again, his voice calm and cold. He said he wanted one more picture. He said he wanted it face to face. I covered my mouth to stop myself from crying. I heard his foot hit the first step. Then, suddenly sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed through the bathroom vent. The footsteps stopped. I heard him run. Police shouted commands. Doors slammed. I stayed in the bathtub until an officer knocked and told me it was safe. They never caught him. Before they left, they searched the house. In my bedroom closet, hidden behind coats, they found a small sleeping bag and empty food wrappers. They believed he had been living there for days, watching me. I moved out the next day. Now I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor. I have cameras everywhere. But sometimes, when I wash dishes at night, I still feel eyes on me. I never look at the window anymore. The end. My name is Ethan Miller, and I am an ordinary person who grew up in a small town and never thought I would have a story like this to tell. I now share real-life horror experiences because some memories refuse to stay buried. What you are about to read is the most terrifying event of my childhood, and it still follows me into adulthood. When I was 10 years old, my entire world changed in a way I did not understand at the time. My parents separated, and overnight, My life split in half just like theirs. I stopped living with my mom and had to move in with my dad. I remember standing in my old bedroom, surrounded by boxes, feeling like I was being erased from my own life. We moved from a loud, crowded neighborhood where kids were always outside riding bikes and playing ball to a quiet suburb on the edge of a small town in northern Michigan. The houses were far apart, the streets were silent, and everything felt cold even before winter arrived. The change hit me hard. My dad tried his best, but he worked long hours and came home tired. He loved me, I know that now, but back then, it felt like I was invisible most of the time. After school, I wandered around the house alone or sat on the front steps watching cars pass by, hoping something interesting would happen. Most days, nothing did. The quiet felt heavy, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. The only good thing about the move was that my dad already knew a family who lived a few houses down the street. It was a single mother with 3 kids. She was kind but always looked exhausted, like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. For me, the most important person in that house was her daughter, a girl named Lena. She was 2 years older than me, 12 at the time, which felt like a huge difference when you are a kid. She was taller, smarter, and way more confident than I was. Still, she was nice enough to let me hang around. At first, our friendship felt forced. Our parents were friends, so we were always pushed together during dinners, cookouts, or boring adult conversations. We were not close, but we were familiar, and in a new place where I knew no one, that mattered. Over time, the age gap felt smaller. I grew taller, started understanding jokes better, and became part of the same group of neighborhood kids. By the time I was 12 and Lena was 14, we had a solid little circle of friends. One of those friends was Mark, a boy my age who lived a few streets over. Mark was loud, funny, and fearless, the kind of kid who never seemed scared of anything. Looking back now, it was obvious that he had a crush on Lena. He followed her around like a shadow and laughed a little too hard at her jokes. At the time, none of us thought much about it. We were just kids trying to survive school and waiting for holidays. This all happened a week before Christmas. The neighborhood actually felt warm for once. Christmas lights were everywhere, glowing softly against the snow. Houses smelled like pine trees and cookies. We were counting the days until winter break, dreaming about staying up late and sleeping in. Everything felt normal, safe. That feeling did not last. One night, Lena's mom was working late. She had a job that involved helping people who were struggling mentally and emotionally. I never knew her exact title, only that she spent her days dealing with very heavy situations. She helped people who scared even the adults sometimes. That night, she left Lena at home with her younger brother, Noah, who was about 9 years old. Mark went over to their house to hang out. He was not really supposed to be there when Lena's mom was not home. Parents in our area were strict about that kind of thing. The rule was simple: no boys at the house when there was no adult. The plan was for Mark to leave before Lena's mom got back. He told me all of this later. That night, I was at my dad's house playing video games, completely unaware that anything was wrong. According to Mark, everything was normal at first. They were sitting in the living room watching television. Noah was in another room playing with his toys. It was early evening, and the house felt calm. Then, around 8 o'clock, they heard a knock at the front door. It was not just any knock. Lena's mom had a special knock she used when she forgot her keys or wanted them to open the door quickly. It was a specific pattern, something they all recognized instantly. When Lena heard it, her face went pale. She looked at Mark with wide eyes. They both thought the same thing. Her mom was home early. Without stopping to think, Mark panicked. He jumped up and ran toward the back of the house. He opened a small laundry room window, squeezed through it, and dropped into the backyard. Snow soaked through his shoes as he ran as fast as he could, cutting through yards and disappearing into the night. He told me later that he felt relieved, like he had escaped just in time. He went home, shut his door, and tried to forget the whole thing. But the knock at the door was not Lena's mom. Believing her mother was standing outside in the cold, Lena unlocked the door and opened it. On the porch stood a woman she had never seen before. The woman was older, with messy hair and eyes that looked wrong, like they were not fully focused on the world. Before Lena could react, the woman forced her way inside. What the police later discovered made everyone sick. The woman was connected to someone Lena's mom had been helping through her job. That client had a sister who had recently been released from a mental hospital. Somehow, that sister became obsessed with Lena's mom. She blamed her for things that made no sense, things only her broken mind could understand. She had watched the house. She had learned their routines. She had memorized the secret knock. I do not know exactly what happened in the hallway, and I am grateful for that. But Noah heard the noise. He looked out from his room and saw a stranger attacking his sister. He did not scream. He did not freeze. He ran. He bolted out the back door and banged on a neighbor's door until someone answered. They called the police right away. I woke up to sirens. Not just one or two, but many. Red and blue lights flooded the street, reflecting off the snow like something unreal. My dad rushed into my room and told me to stay away from the windows. Of course, I did not listen. I looked anyway. I saw police cars, flashing lights, and an ambulance sitting still. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Ambulances only wait when something is very wrong. The truth came out days later, and it still feels unreal to write this. The woman had killed Lena. Not only that, she had done things that no child should ever have to imagine. When the police entered the house, they found the woman sitting calmly in the living room, as if she was waiting for them. Lena was found in the bathroom. The scene was horrific beyond words. The worst detail, the one that made my dad throw up when he heard it, was what she did afterward. She had taken Lena's head and hidden it among the Christmas presents under the tree. The house was decorated, lights glowing softly, gifts wrapped neatly, hiding something so evil. That image burned itself into my brain. Mark was destroyed by guilt. He kept saying that if he had stayed, if he had not run, maybe he could have saved her. But the truth is, he was just a kid. If he had been there, there would have been another body. That woman came prepared, armed, and unhinged. There was nothing he could have done. I was not allowed to go to the funeral. My dad said it would be too much for me, and he was right. It was a closed casket. Christmas that year never happened in our house. No lights, no gifts, no music, just silence. Even now, years later, I still think about Lena, about that knock, about how one small decision changed everything. Sometimes, when I hear someone knock on a door in a certain way, my chest tightens. Childhood ended that winter, buried under snow and flashing lights. The end. My name is Michael Turner, and I am a husband, a father, and a man who carries a secret I have never shared before. I live a normal life now, but what happened to me changed the way I see the world forever. This is a true story from my life, and every word of it still feels heavy in my chest. I have never told this story to anyone, not to my wife, not to my brother, not even to the police. I stayed silent because I was forced to choose between truth and safety. When you have a family, fear makes decisions for you. This happened 4 years ago, in early December, when winter had already wrapped the mountains in snow and silence. My wife, Sarah, loved Christmas more than anyone I knew. She loved the lights, the music, the smell of pine, and the feeling that the world slowed down for a few weeks. We usually bought our Christmas tree from a store parking lot, tied it to the roof, and went home. It was simple and easy. That year, Sarah wanted something different. She had seen pictures online of families going into the forest and cutting their own tree. She said it felt real, special, and meaningful. She wanted it to be a tradition we shared as a family. I agreed, even though I was not excited about it. Work had been stressful, and weekends were the only time I felt like I could breathe. But I wanted to make her happy. Because of our schedules, we could not go together. So I decided to take a half-day off work on a Tuesday and go alone. I planned to surprise Sarah and our daughter Emma, who was 5 years old at the time. I imagined Emma's smile when she saw the tree. That thought pushed me forward. I drove my old pickup truck into the mountains of western Colorado. In our state, you can buy a cheap permit that allows you to cut a tree in certain forest areas. I bought the permit and drove past the main zones where people usually went. Those areas looked empty and sad, with nothing but stumps and broken branches. I wanted a beautiful tree, something tall and full, something that looked like Christmas. I found a narrow dirt service road that led deeper into the forest. According to the map, it was still part of the legal cutting zone. It just took more effort to reach. That did not bother me. It was around 4 in the afternoon when I parked the truck. In the mountains, the sun sets early. The light had already turned gray and flat, like the world was losing color. The temperature was freezing, close to 20 degrees. The air burned my lungs when I breathed. I grabbed my handsaw, pulled on my gloves, locked the truck, and stepped into the trees. The forest was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No birds, no wind, just silence. Snow was about 6 inches deep, and every step I took made a loud crunching sound. I walked for about 15 minutes before I found a small clearing. That is when I saw it. The tree was perfect. A noble fir, tall and wide, about 7 feet high, full branches, deep green needles. I smiled, feeling proud of myself. I knelt down and started sawing. Cutting down a fresh tree is hard work. The wood is strong and wet. The saw made a loud, rough sound as it moved back and forth. My arms burned. Sweat formed under my jacket. My breathing grew heavy. I focused only on the tree. Then I heard it. Crunch. It was not the sound of a branch snapping. It was the sound of snow being pressed under weight. A step. I froze. The sawing stopped. The forest went silent again. "Hello," I called out, trying to sound calm. Nothing answered. I told myself it was just the wind or an animal. Maybe another person looking for a tree. I went back to sawing, but faster now. My heart was beating harder than before. I felt a strange feeling crawl up the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. The trunk finally gave way, and the tree fell into the snow with a dull thud. I did not waste time. I grabbed the trunk and started dragging it back toward the road. Dragging a tree through snow is exhausting. My boots slipped. My arms shook. I stopped to catch my breath and looked back the way I came. That is when I saw it. About 50 yards behind me, near a thick group of spruce trees, something dark stood out against the white snow. It was tall, too tall to be an animal. The shape moved, then quickly disappeared behind a tree trunk. My blood ran cold. That was not a deer. That was a person. Panic hit me hard and fast. I did not call out again. I tightened my grip on the tree and started walking faster. Then I heard it again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The footsteps were closer now. Faster. Whoever it was had stopped hiding. Someone was running after me. I dropped the tree and ran. I sprinted the last stretch toward the road, my lungs burning, my legs screaming. I could hear the person crashing through the brush behind me. They were close, too close. I burst out of the trees and reached the service road. My truck was right there. I fumbled for my keys, pressing the unlock button again and again. I reached the driver's door and grabbed the handle. That is when I noticed something was wrong. The truck leaned to one side. Then I saw it. Both tires on the driver's side were flat, completely destroyed. The rubber was sliced open, hanging in strips. My stomach dropped. This was not an accident. Someone had done this on purpose. I did not even have time to think. I heard footsteps again, but this time not just from the forest. I heard them on the road too. "Hey!" a voice shouted. I turned around. 3 men were walking toward me from up the road. They wore heavy jackets and dark pants. Their faces were covered with black ski masks. I looked back toward the trees. The man who had chased me stepped out. He was wearing a mask too. I was surrounded. "Take the truck," I said, my voice shaking. I held out my keys. "Take whatever you want." The biggest man did not speak. He rushed me. I tried to defend myself, but it was useless. He slammed me into the side of my truck. My head hit metal and bright stars filled my vision. Before I could recover, the others joined in. They punched me, kicked me. My ribs screamed in pain. I curled up in the snow, trying to protect my head. "Grab him," one of them said. They pulled me up and shoved me against the truck. Blood poured from my nose, dripping onto my jacket. The biggest man stood in front of me. He reached into my pocket and took my wallet and my phone. "Unlock it," he said calmly. Why? I gasped. He punched me in the stomach. The air left my lungs in a painful rush. Unlock it. My hands shook as I used my fingerprint to unlock the phone. He took it and started scrolling. He was not checking bank apps. He opened my photos, my notes, my contacts. Then he pulled my driver's license from my wallet. Daniel, he read, saying my name slowly. He read my address out loud. Then he turned the phone toward me. On the screen was a picture of my daughter Emma on her first day of kindergarten, standing in front of her school sign. Cute kid, he said. Emma, right? I felt like my heart stopped. She goes to Meadowbrook Elementary, he continued calmly. We know where you live. We know where she goes to school. Please, I begged. Take the money. Just don't hurt them. He leaned in close. I could smell old smoke on his breath. We're keeping the phone and the wallet, he said. And you're going to stay right here for at least an hour. He grabbed my jacket collar hard. You are not calling the police. You are not telling anyone. If you do, we visit your house. We visit your daughter. I nodded, tears freezing on my face. Good, he said, shoving me into the snow. They walked away, got into a rusted SUV hidden in the trees, and drove off. I lay there for 20 minutes, terrified to move. When I finally stood up, my body hurt everywhere. My truck was useless. I walked 3 miles down the mountain until I found cell service. I flagged down a passing couple and borrowed their phone. I did not call the police. I called my wife. I told her I had a tire blowout and lost my phone in the snow. That night, I hugged Emma so tightly she complained. We moved 3 months later. I told Sarah I got a new job. That was a lie. I just wanted to disappear. I never reported it. I never will. The end.